Thank you. And since we're after lunch, mine has lots of pictures in it. So it's going to be a little bit different, I think, from what we've seen so far. What I want to give you is a look inside of kind of what I see every day on the internet and being marketed toward me and what our youth are seeing. I'm from, if we could overlay one of the slides from earlier, from the first presentation, if you looked at the United States and there was that little peninsula at the bottom, Florida, that was bright red, that's where I'm from. So we are still in big trouble when it comes to how our marijuana policies are actually being implemented and how they're playing out and the impacts that we see from them. So this is kind of a look at the failures of the US policy, and in particular the ones in my state where we thought we did a really good job regulating them when they went to implement the law. So let's see if I can get all this to work. Yes. So what I'll quickly just go over, which I'm sure that you already heard, is the current US drug policy. Oh, it's not on up there. Does that matter? I'll just keep looking back. The current marketing and the products that are on the market and different challenges and strategies that we have. Thank you. So here's my version of that, of the US map. And the states that are still white on there, don't think that these are the places that you should visit because, yay, they have no marijuana policies. They are inundated with them as well. It's just this map is looking more at the light green ones are medical marijuana states, and the dark green ones are recreational. So we have 19 states plus the District of Columbia that have now legalized the commercialization, the retail sale, the possession, the cultivation of marijuana. And every single one of those states that you see that is dark green first only legalized medical marijuana. So I heard that today, that is the stepping stone, that they're not in, the industry isn't in this for your wellness and well-being, to promote this as a medicine. They know that this is a way to change your mind and that their full agenda is legalization. The states that are white in there right now, they only have what we categorize in the US as low THC laws, which means that they have legalized CBD products, which really are legal everywhere now. But they have specific legislation that says most of them is 0.08% THC, and that qualifies for them to have medical CBD laws. So that just kind of gives you a look at where we are at. And so who is this marijuana? Who are they, and what are they selling us? And so some of this you probably already know, but I think that when we're talking about advocacy and we're talking about what we need to educate parents on and what we need to educate lawmakers on, not only are those graphs and the data very important to give them the talking points, but sometimes pictures speak louder than words. So to really show them what is happening in their communities, what's being sold, what their kids are seeing, the marketing techniques that are being put to them, they're usually very shocked. So some of this probably isn't going to be shocking to you, and some of it might be on who's behind these things. So I'm showing you some celebrities here, and I'll talk a little bit more about them. But when we talk about the marijuana movement, they're industry leaders. These are people that are now on the magazine of, the cover of Forbes magazine. They aren't somebody who, is an uneducated in business and just, wants to get high all the time. They see the possible billions of dollars that they can make in this industry. But these are the people that our kids see that are promoting these products. So the first young lady in the corner there, I can't remember her name. I want to say Bella Thorne, but the point is she's a Disney princess. So she's on the Disney Channel. She was on a very popular TV show that our teens and our youth watch. And she now has her own line of CBD and marijuana products that she promotes. Francis Ford Coppola, the one in the beret, obviously a big Hollywood director, but also makes not so great wines. And so he's a huge player. He's a huge player in Hollywood. His influence bringing this industry and making it mainstream into the people he decides who are in his movies, what his movies are about, the product placement in his movies. This is big. So you probably would assume that Snoop Dogg would have his own brand, and you are correct, he does. But he's mainstream now as well. Him and Martha Stewart have teamed up, and they have their own TV show, their baking show. We've got Jay-Z, so you might know him as a music person, but this guy is a force to be reckoned with. He's got a clothing line. He is a producer as well. I mean, these are huge influencers into what we see on the radio, on TV, and on social media. And let's not even bring his wife into it. I mean, she is Beyonce, so imagine the influence that they have over things. Seth Rogen, again, hugely influential in Hollywood, and Gwyneth Paltrow, who is in Hollywood as well, but also looked to as a trendsetter when it comes to what we wear, what we're putting on our faces, how we're doing our hair. And so all of these people are promoting the cannabis industry, you know, just blanketly, but also through their very own products. And they all have so many followers. Not shocking. Cheech and Chong have their own brand. And then these are just Wiz Khalifa, the Blues Brothers people, Jim Belushi. So these are people who you might not expect to have, but then some of them, like the Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia, you probably would assume that they have already gotten into this business. And not probably shocking to anybody who knows who Willie Nelson is. He obviously has his own brand now as well. So you can see that this isn't, these are main players when it comes to who provides us our information in the entertainment industry. And these are the kind of products that they're selling now. So it isn't the joint or the brownie that you might have been crumbling up your plant stuff in. I'm not saying you in particular, but somebody maybe that you knew that was making brownies in college. These are products that, one, are very appealing, but two, if they're not being smoked and you don't smell that stench of marijuana, how would you know that somebody's using them? How would you know if these were being used in the workplace? How would you know if they were being used in school? How would you know if your kid had them in their bedroom and was using them? Because they're probably going to be smart enough to take this packaging off of them. But if they're not smart enough to do that, there's plenty that don't have the big pot leaf in the background to warn you that that's what the product is. And in case you don't have the munchies, if you're thirsty, we've got that covered too. So many, I mean, you can get your THC in any way you want to now. So these are sodas, lemonades, organic lemonades, fruit drinks, energy drinks. So I don't know if you guys had this, but this was something that was really big in the US probably about 5 to 7 years ago, was the alcohol and energy drinks, and everybody was combining those things, and you know, your Red Bull and vodka, and nobody was really sure what the outcome of this was going to be, but in the end, it wasn't that great. We had a lot of an increase in drug driving. We saw that this really increased how alcohol worked in our system when we have no idea what this does yet. Nobody's doing any research that I've seen yet on what the impacts of this is going to be in drinks or in alcohol. And they even have syrups. So if you've heard some of the rap musicians sing about their syrup, they call it something else, but my husband told me not to try to be cool and say it the way that they do. We're just going to call it syrup. But they mix it in with their the drinks. And so these are THC syrups, so these could be concentrates. So these could be up to 90% THC, depending on where you're getting it from. And when everything that you've heard about the impacts of marijuana and on our mental health, on our physical health, on just society, we know how long research takes. So imagine when that research was done, it was probably done on 3%, 7%, maybe if we're lucky, 20% THC. We don't know what this is going to do yet. There really hasn't been any research out there. I personally wish we could call it a different name, because like what some of the speakers have said before, the harms of marijuana doesn't resonate with people because they're thinking back to the ditchweed that they smoked in the 60s and the 70s, and they think, well, it's really not that bad, who cares? And this is a game changer. It's a totally different thing. This is what our kids are seeing on social media. So these are things that I pulled specifically from my social media. And boy, do I get bombarded with things like this because I'm constantly Googling things, this topic matter. But don't think that your kids aren't Googling this topic matter either. And depending on where you live, you would have to have a law that is specific to addressing unsolicited marketing in order to escape these ads. Now, we have one in the state of Florida that the marijuana industry in my state is not allowed to do unsolicited pop-up ads. Like you said, I get them because I Google it, but I have parents and friends that send me pictures of what their kids are getting, and we don't know what they're Googling, but so you can see the different tonics, gummies, candies, the raw flour that then is packaged. Not sure how well you can see that, but the buds there, the container that they're coming in is called Runts, which is a popular candy brand. And then you have the different social media looking at Halloween. The one that is a little cut off with the cookie is the Cookie Monster, so they're using cartoon characters. Girls having fun, just that this is something that's socially acceptable and that you want to do. So these are also from a dispensary in my home state of Florida, and I'm showing you these because they are against all the marketing rules that we put in place. So even though we had regulations on the book saying that they couldn't use cartoon characters and they can't use ads that are appealing to kids, as you can see, they're doing it, and it's not being enforced. So, I mean, I don't have children, so I'm not watching a lot of Sesame Street, but even I know this is the guy from Sesame Street. The one that boils my blood the most would be the Santa one with cookies. So this one has the milk and cookies out for Santa, but don't forget to leave Santa his THC extract as well. So this is their one for St. Patrick's Day. Make sure that you have your weed with your Irish coffee. And then the one where the blunt is having a Zoom conversation with his other friends was taking advantage of the technology that we're all using right now, why we're physically more isolated. But don't forget to stay in constant contact with your best buds online and showing them how to do that. And then just, somebody relaxing on the beach, Wind Down Wednesday. One of the other presenters talked about that, like having a habit that, it's been a tough day at work, I need to wind down. This is the new way to wind down. And this has been a specific marketing strategy toward new mothers and younger females. There's a whole movement toward getting that generation as using this product as opposed to Wind Down Wednesdays with wine or with different alcohol products. And then this was a new one that I just got sent to me. So even Labor Day, they can't, there's just nothing that they can't market toward. And so this one again, so you have medical marijuana sales, you've got your Labor Day ad, and she's a nurse. So you have, this is what our kids see. So they see the Labor Day ads. They know that this is, a time where we have barbecues with our families. We head out to the beach. We celebrate things. And now they're associating marijuana medically with also the cartoon of the nurse. Pre-rolls, you get pre-rolls, buy 3, get 1 free. So I'm not sure how medicine works in other countries, but in the US, you don't get discounts on your prescriptions. You don't get anything for free. If you're buying your heart medication and you're buying 2 months worth, you don't get the 3rd one for free. And there certainly isn't ads like this for it. This is the shatter. So this is the extraction of the THC from the plant turned into the shatter. Buy 3, get 1 free. And as if the ads weren't enough, now they have put their plastering all over big rigs that ride around town. But this one is even worse because this will park somewhere, and inside here, you can speak virtually to your medical marijuana doctor, who then can print out while you're there the recommendation. So you don't have to go anywhere. You can wait for the mobile unit to come to you. Again, this was legal in Florida, illegal. We specifically banned mobile units because we saw that they were happening in other states. We didn't like that it was free advertising, and we didn't like that it wasn't a legitimate relationship with a physician, but it's not being enforced. This one, so I live in the Tampa Bay area of Florida, so we are the peninsula on the peninsula. So what that means is I'm always 20 minutes from the beach. It's a beautiful area, and because we have such amazing weather all year long, we have a lot of outdoor festivals. And this was a music festival in what we call the Vinoy Basin, which is the Gulf of Tampa Bay. And this was a medical marijuana doctor who set up shop at the music festival, and he has a pricing plan. This is his pricing plan. And these are a whole bunch of really sick people who are in line with their beers to discuss their medical plans. So what drives me crazy is this industry is not held accountable like other industries would. So we had a huge issue with pills in the state of Florida. We actually were the epicenter of the prescription drug epidemic for the United States because of how poorly our doctors were regulated. Even then, one of our doctors would not have had the audacity to set up a shop that called themselves the Oxycontin doctors, offer certain pricing plans, and start writing scripts at a music festival to people who have their solo cups of beer in their hands. Yet this is okay. There's families at this music festival. There's people like us at this music festival. This industry gets away with so much, I just don't get it. These are the ads that I see. So the blimp on the bottom was a blimp that 3 years in a row, the beach near me, Clearwater Beach, was voted the #1 beach in the United States. So as you can imagine, we are a huge destination for family vacations, spring break, summer. This is what you're going to see when you're laying out at the beach or you're enjoying water sports. You're going to see the blimp flying across that is promoting medical marijuana. And then this other one says, like weed, get it legal. When did we just start determining whether or not you need something medically by whether you like using it illicitly? So these are practices that they're just getting away with. Again, both of these types are banned in the state of Florida, but here they are. Some more social media. So I think that you guys talked about how this industry plays on everything current that's happening in our world. We talked about the social justice movement and how they have now inserted themselves into that. Well, don't think that COVID is off of their list. So this was joints for jabs. So if you went and got your COVID vaccine, this dispensary was also giving you a free joint, because it's health related. And we joke about it, but this is the message that our kids are seeing. So we know from the prescription drug epidemic that if our youth see something in our medicine cabinet and it was prescribed by a doctor, that means that it's safe. Because why would a doctor give you something that's going to cure you that would be harmful? Or why would my mom and dad have something in the house that's harmful? So now they're playing on that. They're saying that, hey, we're all in this together. And we need to be vaccinated so that we can get back to normal. And this is health related. And so we are going to give you a free joint for everybody that comes up and gets their jabs. And this just wasn't in one state. I've got one up here for Washington, but it also was in, that was the state of Washington. But I also saw the similar ads in Washington, D.C., our capital. And then also, while we were all getting our food delivered at home and we were trying to keep restaurants in business by ordering takeout and have them home, well, don't forget the marijuana industry because they can now deliver as well. So they deliver. In times of COVID, we all come together and they wanted to make sure that they were part of that. And then we have the billboards. So I think that this one is from Las Vegas. I get so many of them now, I forget where they're from. So you see the biggest the pot shop heard around the world, Cannabis City, Got Dabs, playing off the Got Milk campaign from a while ago. You see the one on the bottom, they're promoting the Pride movement. Again, looking at just the different social movements of our time and embedding themselves with them. A delivery service, these two ladies in their bathing suit at the top who are best buds. But again, we saw this with the tobacco industry. We see this with the marijuana industry. We're selling friendships. We're selling sex. We're selling social justice. All of it together in billboards that everybody can see. So I said I was going to show you mostly pictures, but I'm going to insert a little bit of data here. So I really liked this because when we look at what is the outcome of these ads? So in this one, and I can't see that far, so I'm going to have to turn for this one. So this study looked at 6,500 youth from students in 16 different middle schools in Southern California. And I'm really glad they chose California because California was the first state that really tried this. And so they have the longest standing with medical marijuana and how it's advertised and different things. And this was done a couple years ago, so this is only medical marijuana ads. So these outcomes don't account for the 19 states who now have advertisements for recreational use. So when they first did this in 2010, about 25% of the students surveyed reported seeing these ads in the past. Then they did it 7 years later, and 70% of those students said that they saw the ads. So who cares? They saw the ads. What does that mean? So the teens who reported seeing more ads were more likely to report having used marijuana in the previous 30 days. They said they were more likely that they would expect to use in the next 6 months. And they expressed more positive beliefs about the drug, such as that marijuana could help them relax, let them have more fun, or temporarily escape their problems. So the industry is winning when it comes to what they're trying to accomplish with our youth. And I'm sure you heard from the other speakers why that's bad. Think of that list that was put up this morning about all the bad outcomes that happen when our youth use marijuana, and then overlay that with the marketing that they are bombarded with every single day. But it's not just billboards. So this is a journal that I found on my social media, so please use this journal while you are high. We've got t-shirts, just hanging with my buds. It's just dried marijuana. This is the Chiba Hut. It's a marijuana restaurant. And they're actually located in several states in the US. And in the states where marijuana is legal, their food has marijuana in it. In states where it's not legal, their food is just named after things. So maybe like the 420 burger or the 710 milkshake. And how many people know what 710 is? Regina doesn't count because she was in the thing last night. So if you're thinking that 420 is the day that everybody smokes their pot and that's the time to smoke, the day to smoke, you're a little bit behind schedule. So 710 is the new time because that's oil inverted. So if you hear your kids talking about, hey, what are you doing on 710, or it's almost 710, so this is the way they're using these new marijuana products, the butane hash oil products, the high potency products. So it isn't just the 420 we have to worry about now, there's the 710 holiday as well. So their menu items will be more, since it's not legal, they'll just make them, marijuana relevant. This is a picture of the weed bus that my friend Carlton uses in his presentation sometimes. And this particular one is in New York, and at the time, recreational marijuana, it was not legal there, but this was about normalization. So this bus is in Times Square, everybody sees it when they walk by, they're promoting products, marijuana lollipops and things like that, they're playing loud music, they're just trying to be in your face about this, so the more you see it, the more normalized it is, and when it's normalized, we don't question things anymore. This is a boutique by my house that sells really expensive stuff. Really expensive clothes, little junky bracelets that cost $100 a piece. And this is a tank top that they had in there. It says, "Who's your caregiver?" So in medical marijuana states, you're allowed to register somebody who is your caregiver, and that's the person who acquires your marijuana for you. So this is just kind of normalizing that whole pattern. The picture in the middle is the bus stop at the student center at the University of South Florida. And so you can't see it, but the little white sign there is the cannabis doctor, and she's in her doctor uniform with her stethoscope. So this is what all the students see at the University of South Florida when they're getting around campus. And then the other one is just a convenience store that's advertising smoked medical stuff, kratom, vapes, THC-8. This is one of my faves for many reasons. So I said I was from Florida. I said I'm from the Tampa Bay area. So if those of you who watch American football, we won the Super Bowl. And during the Super Bowl, there's a lot of things that go on, even during COVID. And so the whole area around the stadium was an area that you could take your family, and they called it something like the Super Bowl walk, and they had different things set up. You could meet players, you could see trophies, you could see jerseys, and you could see Dr. Cannabis. So this guy was parked right by the stadium the whole entire week, and you can see one of them out there in their little medical uniforms. So I already said that these things are illegal. They weren't allowed to have mobile units. So you think, well, maybe he's just there advertising, which should be illegal, but, shame on us. We didn't put it in the law. But what you can't see, and you probably wouldn't notice unless you read our bill and knew everything about our program like I do, is the tablecloth on that table says MUV, M-U-V. So MUV is a dispensary in the state of Florida. One of our biggest laws that we put in place was our doctors and dispensaries are not allowed to have any direct or indirect affiliation, because that was one of our biggest things with our prescription drugs in the state of Florida, our pill mills. We had, I hate even calling them doctors, but criminal doctors who were aligning themselves with big pharma, who were charging people $300 or $400 for a 2-second evaluation, giving them a script, and oh, by the way, you can get the pills right here. So we wanted to make sure that these were two separate entities. And so the fact that they're even sharing a table and sharing landscape is against the law in the state of Florida. Then you have the bus, which is against the law in the state of Florida. But this is what the families saw every single day that they participated in Super Bowl activities. I wish that I could tell you that I took this picture, but I didn't go near the stadium during Super Bowl time. But I got sent this picture, no lie, probably like 50, 60 times by friends that were going by there who were just irate that this was taking place. And so these are the kind of things that you want to show lawmakers, or you want to show people when you're working on these different issues, that this is what's going to happen in your neighborhood. These are the things that you're going to see. And so it also isn't just about the marketing, it's about the mindset. And I think that we heard this in some of the presentations yesterday, and I think even today, that unfortunately, there's just such a false mantra now that marijuana is harmless. It's become part of our collective conscious that we don't even realize anymore. And it's a joke to be talking about marijuana. And, and like one of the other speakers said, the last place on earth I imagined myself to be was on a stage in Copenhagen speaking about marijuana. If you asked me 20 years ago what I would be doing with my life. But there's just so much around this issue that is really scary, and the different things that it can do. So this is the new thing now. Have you guys heard of California sober? So the new thing now is that you can be sober, you can be in recovery, but you can still use marijuana, and that's called California sober. And so the idea is ridiculous enough, but now it's being promoted by people that our young people are looking up to. This is Demi Lovato. So for those of you who don't know, she is a huge pop star. She started off, I think, also in the Disney brand, moved on to, as a young adult, as a award-winning pop star who's had a very troubled past with drugs. And in fact, She had been in recovery. She relapsed. She overdosed on, I believe, heroin and fentanyl. And now she's in recovery again. She's been very open about her process. And it was amazing because she was bringing to light the struggles that many people have, but also showcasing that people do recover and that people in recovery can have an active space and be successful and be around. And now she's tarnished that message by saying that, yeah, I am in recovery, but I'm still smoking pot. And it's the California sober. And so the message that sends to our youth, because this is a woman who has billions of dollars, maybe millions, billions, I don't have a great concept of money, but she's rich. And so she doesn't live the life that the rest of us live. And she has the resources and probably the infrastructure to help her when she needs help. Many of our youth don't have that. So she's sending a message and making it seem like this is something that everybody can do. Everybody can be California sober. When the reality is if she can pull this off, and we'll see what happens, she's the exception to the rule and very lucky. And so I'm going to throw a couple things in there about CBD, but I want to preface this with I don't like talking about CBD. And the reason why is because I got enough on my plate to deal with when it comes to intoxicating substances. So something that's not supposed to be intoxicating, really, I don't have time for. But again, they're pushing the boundaries of what they're doing, and they're working toward that normalization of the marijuana plant. And I think that it's something that, as adults, we might be able to read between the lines, but I found many that cannot. But as youth, that's a lot harder. And if you find a CBD product that is actually CBD, and you choose to use it, and it's not getting you high, and it has anything, that's great. I don't need to know about it. You don't have to come up and tell me about it afterwards. But I'm just going to tell you about some of the marketing and some of the false promises there. So this was somebody from the National Institute of Health, and he just was talking about the consumer realities that right now. So in the US, this is being sold everywhere, and I'll show you some pictures. But he says, consumers are participating in one of the largest uncontrolled clinical trials in history, and no one really knows what they're taking. It's scary, because we don't know what's in these products. It's beauty products, it's nutrition products. A lot of them have the pot leaf on them, but some of them don't. And it's everywhere. It's all over social media. So I subscribe to a beauty box. You know, they send me beauty stuff every once a month. Lip glosses, mascaras, different things like that, because I'm bored and don't know what to do with my time. So they send me this stuff, and I experiment on my face. So I had an older subscription that I had canceled, and I ordered this new one. My first box came like 2 months ago. My next one should be on its way when I get home. And I was so excited to open it. It's got 6, full-scale products in there, and one of them was a hemp CBD product. And I was so mad because this is the beauty box that my niece gets. And so that's how I knew about this one. And I wanted to get the same one that she got because she's 16 and she's kind of hard to connect to because she's 16. So I thought, well, if we have something in common, I can call her when the beauty things come in and we can talk about the different things that were in our box. And so now the first thing in my box was the CBD lip gloss, and I had big pot leaves all over it. And so I'm really upset about that. But it's to show you that it's everywhere. So I know what it is. My 16-year-old niece just sees something that has pot leaves all over it, and it's a lip gloss, so it must be safe, it must be fun. And it is, it's a safe lip gloss. There's nothing's gonna happen to you if you use this lip gloss, but it's the normalization of the product itself. CBD in all of our beverages and food items now, CBD in alcohol. This is a huge thing in the United States. This is a big marketing thing. Again, we don't know what happens when we mix these two things. Research will tell us when somebody does it, but I would have to say it's probably not a great idea. But we have beers and different things that are made with it, but then we have bars that are making craft cocktails that are giving you like a little tube, for $3 extra, do you want to add CBD to your drink? And you can buy this little tube of CBD to put in there. So when I was forced to start looking at this CBD issue, I was really finding reasons why I shouldn't have to talk about this, and I came across some really scary stuff. And so I'm not going to go into all of this because I'm not the best person to explain the science behind it. And if Bertha was here today, she could, and way more eloquently than I am. But if you're vaping CBD, because of how hot the product gets, it actually can change into an intoxicating form of THC. So all of these things that are sold over the counter as safe products, not illicit, they're very legal. When consumed in e-cigarettes, CBD bears all the dangers related to it, the psychoactive component, THC. And there's some configurations there. I'll let you have that so that you can do that part of the research on your own. So one of our earlier speakers said that, she's a parent. And, they kind of came at her because she's not a parent. Well, I'm not a parent, but I have nieces and nephews, and my nephew is a vapor. And I've been trying to get him to not do this, and now I suspect he's vaping CBD, because at my father's birthday a couple weeks ago, I somehow brought this up, because I just love to, make everybody mad and talk about drugs. And I brought up CBD, and all of a sudden I see my nephew and niece looking at each other. They think that we don't know that they're in cahoots together, and they're looking at each other, and all of a sudden they get very quiet. And I'm telling my dad about the CBD and the vaping, and, we don't know a lot about this, and how it could, you could fail a drug test if you're using this, if it turned into CBD, and you could be intoxicated. And all of a sudden, my nephew gets up and walks out, and he's back on the back patio doing his vape thing. And my 16-year-old niece, who I've already told you about, she says, well, I take CBD. I said, for what? She said, my anxiety. I said, well, how's it going for you? She's like, I don't know. I said, how long have you been taking it? She's like, about 6 months. And I said, well, do you feel less anxious? And she's like, no, not yet. I said, no. Is she going to keep using it? She's like, well, yeah, because my dad said that it's a good. Okay. Her dad's estranged from us, so I let it go at the thing, but she sees all of this. So it must be safe. It must be real. Why would people be selling that if it wasn't doing something good? So this is her 16-year-old brain, and now she's introduced this to it, and we don't know what is going to happen with that. I'm going to skip through these because I know that you guys had a lot of presentations on this yesterday. But the reason why we care about this issue, and I'm going to talk about the reason why I care about it right now specifically, is because of COVID. When we look at what our youth are going through, it's something that none of us have gone through a pandemic before, but for them, they don't have the skill set yet to deal with the different emotions that come along with the loss and grief that they have from maybe they lost people because of COVID, but the life that they lost because of COVID. They're not being able to see their friends. They're not being able to have their extracurricular activities. Just boredom. We've all been bored out of our minds during parts of COVID. We know how to deal with that a little bit more as adults. As kids, they might not. So we see that has been a huge increased risk factor for the initiation or continuation of drug use. But then when we look at the underlying mental health issues and the things that could come across that, it just makes it a little more scary. That, they're dealing with these mental health things that they're really not sure how to deal with. They're using the marijuana because they think that that's how they're going to fix themselves, but really the marijuana is doing more harm for them. So I put in the depression and the anxiety here, just a couple studies. One of them found that young people who had used marijuana 3 times more by the age of 18 were more likely to have a depressive disorder later on in life at 26. Another one on anxiety, so I'm just going to I know you guys heard a lot about this. So this was a newer one that came out and was published in JAMA, and it was marijuana use may be associated with suicidality in young adults. So they looked at survey data from 280,000 young adults between the ages of 18 and 35, and it showed that marijuana use was associated with the increased risk of thoughts of suicide, a suicide plan, and a suicide attempt. associations remained regardless of whether somebody was also experiencing depression, and these risks were greater for women than in men. And this, I think, kind of coincides with what we heard from the last speaker when we looked at what was happening for the girls that were using marijuana had, a different behavioral health issues or mental health issues with it. This one is disturbing to me because I unfortunately have been meeting a lot of parents lately who lost their child because of a marijuana-induced psychosis that led to suicide. And you would think that these would be rare finds, but unfortunately there's a lot of them out there. And they have formed these wonderful groups where they come together to educate other people, but it's a group of people I wish I never knew because I only know them because of the great tragedy that they have faced. And so all of that has many challenges. All those pictures that you just saw, all of what the industry is kind of promoting, one is just the policy itself is a challenge. So we have a challenge in the world of prevention, in the world of drug demand reduction, because we have this movement. In the US, I have some things here that just talk about the movement from the movement of decriminalization versus depenalization. So, we want to work within the criminal justice system to promote alternatives to incarceration. We don't want to remove the criminal justice system. I, too, am an example of somebody who didn't use because I was very afraid of being arrested or the police finding me, but also I was really afraid of disappointing my parents. That said, I have a sister who's 3 years younger than me, and those things didn't come into play. And she chose, she's totally fine now. She chose to use drugs and was a pretty heavy marijuana user. The mother of the CBD anxiety child now and the possible vapor. Those two things. We have this move toward medical marijuana. I told you in that other slide, every single one of those states that has recreational legalization started off as medical marijuana states. And then those are all the states that have recreational. It's a challenge because that as perceived risk goes down, and that's what they're doing with those advertisements, we know use goes up. And to kids, legal means safe, or at least safer. So some of them might be savvy enough to know that it's not the safest thing, but why would it be legal if it was something that was going to harm me, very badly? And so we have to, that's our job to change that, to take that back, to share the information that we have. And so in states that have legalized recreational marijuana, and I'm sure that Dr. Thurstone is going to talk about this when he presents, and as well as Kevin Sabet, but as of 2018, they reported first use rates among adolescents were anywhere between 12 to 63% higher than the national average. So make no mistakes, states that move down this path have more youth use. They can say whatever they want in those other surveys, and I think they're changing the way that they're asking the surveys, but they have more people initiating into drug use and using, especially in the category of young adults. So when we look at college students and we look at the 18 to 30 bracket, that's where we're seeing the largest increases in use because that's who these people are really going for. Some challenges related to COVID, it's really had us take a step back when it comes to our prevention efforts because so many of them were community-based. And when your community, your live community is taken away and you're put into a virtual community, it was a little bit harder. But kids were still using during COVID. And interestingly enough, during this one survey that they looked at, because we were in the US, we saw higher rates of marijuana use and alcohol use for youth during COVID. And 31% of them were using via technology. So just like we are taking advantage of being a hybrid event where we have many of our attendees online, they were taking advantage of Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams and whatever else they were using to use together virtually. Still the largest amount using by themselves. And then even during lockdown, when this survey was done, still 23% of them managed to break out and use face-to-face. So what now? I'll quickly go over these. It seems like there's this is so much information, and what am I supposed to do now? You just want to run and hide in a corner. But there are so many things that you can do. Even so, for me, my state was that red state, and I'm coming from the U.S., who I guess we can just say has, I'll just say sorry. Sorry for what we've done drug policy-wise, because I know that it trickles back on the rest of you. But there's still things that even I can do, and there's things that you can do when your country, state, municipality is looking toward these things. So you can restrict the marketing. You don't want to have what I have. And so if you're looking at these policies anywhere, first and foremost, make sure that there's a ban on how they market and who they can market to and the different things that they can do. Have zoning restrictions on where they can sell and how they can sell. Restrict the different kind of products. So some places have been very successful in saying that you can't have edibles or you can't have smoked products, that it has to be capsules or something like that. Increase in everything. Increase education efforts, especially around the mental health. I think that this is something that parents don't know. Adults don't realize the impact on mental health of these different substances, especially marijuana. Promote drug-free activities. I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer. But, think of all the things that you can do as a family, as an individual, that have nothing to do with drugs and alcohol, and promote those things, and promote health and wellness, because we don't always need to be preaching about drug education. If we're promoting health in other ways, the message will click. And I didn't get to hear Bertha yesterday, and she's one of my favorite speakers. So the reason why it's so important that we do this to youth, and I'm sure this was in her presentation, is some of the research that her and Dr. DuPont, both Drs. DuPont, Bob and Caroline, have put together. And if we can keep kids from not using marijuana, 18, preferably 21, maybe even older, the likelihood of them having problematic use later in any of these other categories is slim to none. So I think that it's an easy thing to try, and this is the One Choice program that they put together to promote these things and have little messages and different things. So it's a prevention initiative based on making that choice for health reasons. There's individual strategies. I like the Listen First campaign from UNODC. There's simple, quick messages that anybody can do. Do what you're doing now. Keep learning and be proactive. You want to make sure that you're on top of these different trends. And build protective factors. So this last one is something that, it's just a quick video that we made at Drug Free America Foundation, because we really thought, and I use it all the time with my friends when they say, what can I do to keep my kids drug-free? And here's some simple strategies that seem that there are things that we can all do, whether we're parents, as long as we have some youth in our life. So I'm not sure what I should do from here. Okay. Around the globe, 35 million people suffer from substance use disorders. Not surprisingly,
most of them started using as adolescents. And while there are certain factors that increase the risk of developing a substance use disorder, there are many other factors, starting in childhood, that can actually reduce the risk. These protective factors are characteristics within children or their environment that enable them to successfully manage and adapt to life's challenges. Being a fully engaged parent begins with being a role model for your children. Communicating well with kids and their teachers, plus staying closely involved in school activities and homework, really pays off. Children tend to earn better grades, develop better social skills, and partake in healthier activities while avoiding more risky behaviors. With the onset of adolescence, young people become more independent and more likely to be influenced by peers and others outside their family, which adds up to a greater chance of being exposed to drugs and alcohol. So, It's critical that parents become educated on the subject and have family discussions on the dangers of drug and alcohol use. Be sure to carefully monitor your children's friends and activities as well. Plus, setting clear rules along with firm discipline goes a long way in helping them avoid risky behaviors. Keeping teens focused on healthy activities such as sports, youth clubs, or volunteering will also keep them on a safe path. Remember, children not only listen to what adults say, they watch what we do. As a parent, one of the best things you can do to prevent young people from using substances is to set a good example yourself by avoiding the use of alcohol, drugs, or tobacco within your home. We can all play a role in building protective factors for young people by adopting healthy habits, setting clear boundaries, providing encouragement, and by simply listening. For more information about building protective factors, visit Drug Free America Foundation at DFA.
And then we also have different resources that you can find on our website. We have an epidemiologist on staff who reads all of the really hard research that usually I don't understand and comes and brilliantly deciphers it into quick talking points for the rest of us. Okay. I messed it up. I'll just talk really loud. And so that's his research blog on there. So just different resources on our website, and that's it. I think I might have gone over, sorry.
It was perfectly timed, perfectly in time. Thank you so much for sharing your views on the big marijuana industry, as you said, and that they have been very strong. That they have been very strong in the United States, and it's sad to see that even though it has not always, even though sometimes it's not allowed, laws are not being enforced. And that definitely should be changing, because as we have seen, it's very much affecting children and the future, how they think about marijuana, it being normalized, and that also increasing use. Then we do have one question to kind of close it off before we continue to the next speaker, and that is from online audience. That would be kids and teenagers have to be protected from online ads and marketing and co-branding as a way to targeting youth with drugs. Why is it not done effectively?
That is a good question. I pose that question to every lawmaker around the globe. I think that it's hard because we know that it's hard to control the World Wide Web. And it's something that has to be done in each jurisdiction, but then if the ad isn't generated from that jurisdiction, then they're really not breaking the law. So I think that it's very similar to what we see with the online sales of all the illicit drugs and the fentanyls and things like that that are coming from other countries but sold online. Even though they're banned everywhere else, we can't control the internet market, so it is very difficult. I would say more importantly, since we probably can't ban all that, is to, for those of you who work with kids or have kids in your life, if you are setting those clear messages, or you're setting those clear boundaries, you're sharing that information, they're not going to believe the ads as much. And so maybe the ads, they'll come to you and say, hey, I saw what you were talking about. Look what they're trying to do. So maybe show them some of the things that are out there so that you're addressing it before somebody else is bringing it into their space.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Is there any question here in the audience we want to take? Yeah? Go ahead. Yeah?
I thank you. It was very interesting, especially looking at the cultural artifacts that you collected at your home state. I will show myself as completely probably missing knowledge about the America as a whole and the cultural field of it. But, well, from my knowledge, Florida is always known, and this is like, I'm not trying to imply anything here, as a sort of a crazy land where people come in order to avoid legal trouble. There's also the famed Florida Man meme, courtesy of Atlanta, the TV show, I guess. So there's always this image of it as sort of an outlier in America. So what you were showing from there, it kind of seems that, you know, this is Florida, this is what you would expect. Is it something that is what's happening in Florida with the marketing and everything? Is this something that is a trend and normality all across America, or Florida is still an outlier? Is there variation in these kinds of things there?
So I will tell you that Florida is more conservative than most states when it comes to this issue. So what you see happen in states that allow this kind of stuff. I would say, for those of us who live in the US, usually California is the state that's the outlier. They are the crazies. And they're the ones who have probably the most liberal policies that kind of flow toward the rest of us. Florida was the first state in the South to have voters adopt a medical marijuana program. So maybe in the South we have that. But in our program has more restrictions than most programs. So what you see advertising-wise is conservative compared to what you would see if you went to Colorado or Washington or California or Nevada. So to put that in perspective, in the state of Florida, our dispensaries, and I have pictures of them. You wouldn't know that it was a marijuana dispensary if you drove by. They have names like Cureleaf, but their logo is not allowed to have a pot leaf in it. Whereas if you went to Colorado or Nevada or some of these other states, they have neon green pot leaves all over their stuff. So we did try our best to regulate it as well as we could. What I guess didn't translate culturally is if you were watching this presentation in the United States, you would see that all of our efforts to regulate still allowed them to find many, many loopholes because we're just as bad as the states who have no regulation. I could see how as countries that don't have what we have yet, and they don't have 19 other places around them, that does look like the Wild West. And I don't defend Florida often because we usually do not have good policies. We're not usually the trendsetters of good policies. This is why I don't like being recorded. But I will defend them on this, that when it comes to this particular topic, we actually are more conservative than other states.
Okay, thank you, and apologies for smearing Florida's name. Now it has been, in my eyes, it has been redeemed. Thank you.
You're welcome.